Yo, back at it again with my boy L Train in the building, baby. Talking some college football, some preview. Talking some
Yes,
preview.
sir.
We talked Gators last week. We're gonna talk a little bit about them Canes today. Another week down, another week closer. I was talking to Dave earlier and dude, the freaking week 0 is next weekend, man. It's crazy. We're thinking about our games
Yeah.
in 2 weeks, but literally the game in Dublin, Iowa State,
It's football
K-State,
next week.
two ranked teams, playing in a week. But we're breaking down the Canes tonight. We talked, like I say, the Gators last week. High expectations, obviously, for both of those teams. Another game against them this year too, as well. So that's always when Florida and Miami play. That's always brings up it ratchets it up another level. So that's going to be a big game, week 4, obviously in the season. But yeah, we'll break that down in a little bit. But good to be back on talking some college football. Like I say, another week closer to games actually being played. And without further ado, I'll let you get into your Miami Hurricanes and your expectation level and where you think their strengths and weaknesses are and what your expectation level is for your 2025 Canes.
Yes, sir. The 2025 K's should be an exciting season. Backtrack a little bit to last year. It was a great year to start the year off with Cam Ward and a lot of skill guys. And it was a fun season, but they did what they normally do. They just don't finish. They finished one of those 2 games down the stretch and they're in the playoff. They had some, it was a tough season. Looking back at it defensively, and Mario made a lot of changes on the defensive staff. He fired Guidry and brought in Corey Heatherman from Minnesota. So hopefully those changes on defense, and he overhauled, I should say, the whole secondary. Only one starter returns in OJ Frederick. Not saying he's the starter, but we move on from Cam Ward with all the hoopla of the Pop-Tarts Bowl of him not playing in the second half, blah, 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 blah. Number 1 pick. Good for Cam, but we moved on and we got Carson Beck from transfer from Georgia to come in to be the next guy. I think it was the right move just because of the roster at the quarterback position, I should say. We were young at the quarterback position, so anytime you get a veteran like a Carson Beck to come in and help your team out, you'll take it. Lost a lot of skill guys at the wide receiver position. So we're going to have to replace just about probably 80 to 90% of those guys. But, this is the year where all those 4 and 5 stars that Mario's been stacking up the last couple of years have to step in and play. Defense, once again, defensively, you got a new defensive coordinator in. You redo the secondary. You bring in a couple guys from, you got a Poser from Louisville, a Brantley from Arizona. You got Jacoby Thomas from Tennessee, who was going to be a starter at Tennessee, which I was surprised that he left. So you got him, Xavier Lucas. We know that whole hoopla coming from Wisconsin. The lawsuits are still going on, and hopefully that doesn't affect anything. But, you bring in a Muhammad Torre from Rutgers, who hasn't played. He didn't play last year at linebacker because he's coming back from ACL. But hopefully, that helps out. And like I say, offensively, man, I love the offensive line. The strength for the offense is going to be the offensive line. I think everyone knows that's Mario's forte. We still have 2 good backs with Lyle and Fletcher. You lose a bruiser and Damian Martinez. It's not the worst thing in the world, but because you have a Fletcher and a Jordan Lyle, but hopefully, those guys could carry the load with the offensive line. And, you protect Carson and give him opportunities like they did last year with Cam. I don't expect the same offense like we ran last year where it was just up-tempo and running. Carson's more of a let's get the running game going, play action type quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. You bring in C.J. Daniels from LSU at 1 wide receiver. You bring in Marion, who's going to be a wide receiver kick returner from BYU. And you expect a JoJo Trader, a Nikar, a Ray Joseph to step up. And then they're loving the freshmen right now. From everything I've seen in practice, they love Malachi Toney and Josh Moore, who've been standing out in practice every day. I think for like 4 or 5 days, it seemed like Josh Moore was catching a touchdown in practice. But, the practice, does that translate to the field? that I think, like I said, I expect another good year for the Canes, but can they finish the season and not drop those easy games in the ACC? It doesn't make sense what goes on in the ACC year in and year out outside of Clemson. There's always that consistency of one team's in the ACC championship game, and there are 9 teams fighting for that second position. So I don't think it's a make or break year for Mario, but I think that it's an important year for him to get to that ACC championship game or to the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just looking at the Canes, I was just looking at the schedule. This year's schedule looks tougher than last year. Would you say? Would you agree with that statement? I don't know. What's your thoughts on
Uh, I would agree with that just because you start that game off at
Notre
Notre
Dame?
Dame. I
Yeah,
mean, Notre
yeah,
Dame's going to be a top 5 team, so
yeah,
that's going to be a top a big game. And then Florida's better. Then you play NC State. You got Pitt at the end of the year.
yeah. I
Florida
guess
State's going to be better. I don't care what anyone says.
yeah. I guess that was looking back
They're not
last
going to be
year.
2-10.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you say, you guys started off the season really hot. You played really well early in the year, and then you had,
Hmm.
I guess that Virginia Tech game was wonky. You somehow got a win there, so you're like, okay, that was just one off. Then you had the game
Hmm.
at Cal where it was just like, what the hell's going on here? They come back
Yep.
and win by 1, and then you kind of just each week it seemed like you're just fighting. That Louisville game was a back and forth game, and
Yep.
then they handled Florida State pretty much easily. They kind of got down in the Duke game, then kind of scored a lot of touchdowns late in that game to blow them out.
Yeah.
So it was like almost like late in the year they started playing with fire, and then they got burned at Georgia Tech. And then we thought, okay, well, here it is, win or move on against Syracuse. And like I say, they laid the egg, they didn't finish, and they're out of the
Not just
they're out
that.
of,
You were up Sponge. You were up 21-0,
yeah,
21
no, for
nothing,
sure,
and
yeah, they
you
were,
you gave up. It was a lot of Canes fans wanted Guidry fired, but didn't think Mario was going to fire him. But you know what? He did it. The one thing you got to give Mario credit for is the last 3-4 seasons, those tough decisions in the offseason, he's made them. No
yeah,
one wants to see anyone get fired, but at the same time, sometimes as a coach, you got to make those tough decisions and move on from certain people or certain coordinators or assistant coaches. And he made that decision where the defense was just outside of the Florida game. After that, it was just a free for all for the most part. And the defense was just bad. And they just give us one good half against Georgia Tech or Syracuse. We're probably in the playoff.
yeah,
I mean,
no,
we
for
still can
sure,
make the argument and say the Canes were good enough to be in the playoffs outside of those 2 losses, but you don't lose down the stretch. If they would have lost one game at the beginning of the season and maybe one midway to the end and finished strong on a 3-game winning streak, I think they're possibly in. But you just can't finish the season the way they finished.
yeah. And then the other teams were playing well late, like SMU was
Yeah,
playing well late, Clemson played well late. So
yeah.
some of those other teams in the league played good down
Hmm.
the. So yeah, that's the question mark. I think when I look at this schedule this year, like I say, you obviously start off with Notre Dame as a top 5 team, top 10 team.
Well,
The Gators are,
before you get into that, the caveat to this schedule, their first 9 games are in the state of Florida.
yeah, no, that's good. That's a good thing.
You
It's
only
a
have
pretty,
4 road games. You have
like that's
9 games in the state of Florida. You only go 4 games on the road. Your first true road game is at SMU
yeah, November
in
1st.
November.
Yeah,
So think
yeah.
about that. Any coach would love if we could have all our games in one state, our state,
What's
for the
crazy is
first 2 months.
you guys only have 4 road games. Period.
Yeah, that's what
How
I'm
does that?
saying.
How does that happen?
The ACC doesn't make sense.
Like that is wild. Like looking at it, there's 4
Hmm.
road games only. And like I say, you're going to be in Florida when you go to Tallahassee on the 4th of
Yeah,
October. But then literally you got 3 road games. Obviously, like I was telling you because we're playing the video game. Obviously, I know the last 2 games, it's going to be cold weather games, and then
yeah,
these two teams potentially are going to be good or bad, or I don't know. Virginia Tech and Pitt. Like we like what Virginia Tech and Pitt have done.
yeah.
So those are going to be 2 critical games down the stretch to be like, hey, where are we going to finish this season at? So that's why like your
Why
mantra,
not just that? The Virginia Tech's thinking about last year's game where they
right?
think they should have won it.
Yeah,
And then
no, for sure.
Pitt's always a tough game. I don't
Yeah,
care what
Pitt's always
anyone says.
it is. I don't
It's
know.
always tough.
Whenever Miami and Pitt play, it is always. And then to be November 29th in Pittsburgh, it's going to be cold, so
Yeah, so
that's
you know how Florida boys are. They're going to be ski masked up and
yeah,
long johns and everything else. And I mean, that game right there is like, how do you respond? Are you 11-1 going in, or 11 and 10 and 1 going into that game, or are you
right,
8-3 going into that game?
right.
What's
Yeah,
the difference?
totally. Yeah, no, that's definitely gonna, definitely as the season progresses and we break it down each week,
Yeah,
obviously we'll see where it goes. But yeah, like week one out the gate, man, I think this is a hell of a matchup against Notre Dame
yeah,
because Notre Dame's been a fun team to watch with Freeman. He's turned the tides with
yeah,
them, made them really good. But going back to like what I feel about Miami, like losing your top six pass catchers to me is big. Yes, I do like Katie Daniels from LSU. I do like the kid from BYU, but they haven't played in your offense. They haven't played with Carson, whatever,
exactly.
blah, blah, blah. But like to lose your top six guys and even losing the number one pick in the draft, Cam Ward,
Yeah,
yes, you're replacing them with a guy in Carson Beck, who I think is it's weird. I can't put my finger on how I feel about Carson. He's obviously he had the bad injury,
yeah.
but he should be healed with the shoulder, Tommy John, whatever the heck he had. It was more so, I think I was very disappointed in Carson last year because I think I had expectations of him being like
Yeah.
a better quarterback, and he kind of didn't play up to the level of where I thought he should be at. Now,
Well, I
whether
think,
that's just Georgia or just the
yeah.
schedule or, I don't know. Just,
No, I think they had a lot of drops. They led the nation
yeah,
in
no,
drops. I was very critical of Carson last year. I mean, I don't
yeah.
know if you remember that.
No, I
That
do because
that
because
half,
I turned to be like not a Carson fan. Like he just didn't play
well, the
well,
half what was it? The second half against Alabama, where you're like, whoa, that's the guy we expect to see. That's the
right?
guy that's going to be he could be a top 5, top 10 pick. And I think he just pressed and tried to do too much. When your receivers are dropping everything, you tend to try to be perfect in the passing game, and it just didn't work out. And I'm not sitting here going to say the Miami offense is going to be better for Carson than the Georgia offense, but I think what'll help Carson, if they could get out of week one, if they could get out of week one with a W, the next 2 weeks you could fine tune some things in
Yeah,
the passing game.
totally. So I mean,
But
you could do it. You could do it regardless, win or lose. You got
yeah,
to fix it after that. That's just
yeah.
a banger out the gate. You know what I'm saying? But a
Well,
win obviously is what you want.
and that's what I think. The offense is not going to be like last year's offense. I see them running the ball more. I see them getting Fletcher and Lyle in the running game, and depending on the offensive line, you lost two starters from last year. You
Yeah,
lose Jalen Rivers at left guard, which Ryan Rodriguez was your left guard going into the Florida game until he got injured. Jalen was at left tackle. He slides in. Markel Bell gets to the left tackle position, and they interchanged a lot during the season. But Markel Bell is going to be your starting left tackle. Your right side comes back with Noah and Arnez Cooper. Center, we'll see about Brockenmeyer. You lose Zach Carpenter, who was a transfer in for one more year. He leaves. I think he signed with the Dolphins, undrafted free agent. So center and left guard are your main concern going into the season. But if you get a Ryan Rodriguez starting at left guard, really you only truly have one starter you have to worry about. So they're going to lean on their running game, and they're going to get those young receivers involved. I think they're going to be creative on offense. And like I say, just try not to put too much in Carson's hands. They said he's been looking great in practice. There's zip coming off the ball and everything. So we'll see. But we won't know until week one.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, and that's kind of like how all these camps are. They're showing you the best clips
Mhm.
unless you're there every
Yeah,
day
exactly.
watching. They're going to show you a sweet touchdown catch to JoJo in the corner or
There,
something like that.
there- there's a lot of bad intel leaving all these camps.
Right, right. Yes. Like I say, that's again, I think Florida and Miami are in the same boat with they have a veteran offensive line. They're gonna lean on that O line to
Hmm.
early in the season to help create the run game as like your focal point, and then kind of let things hang for Carson and DJ as the season goes on.
Yeah,
Obviously, the Gators, they get two kind of warm-up games, which is good before they got to play LSU and Miami. So,
yeah,
coming out the gate against Notre Dame, you're going to find out real quick
yeah.
if Carson and these receivers are, do have timing, are they getting open?
The
Are they
great thing is
leaning
a
on
home game. The,
yeah,
the
no,
great thing, it's a home game. You're at Hard Rock. It's a Sunday night game. Place is going to be anytime Notre Dame and Miami
that's like a
play.
stand that's like a standalone. So it's definitely
Yeah,
going to be
anytime you have those two, they're rivals. I don't care what anyone
Yeah,
says. You
yeah,
have those
totally.
rivals play,
Go all the way back to
converts
cons.
versus Catholics.
Yeah,
It's going to be packed. The thing is, as long as you don't let Notre Dame get ahead of you 14, 20 points, you keep it close. You let it be a back and forth game. Kind of like 2017, it was an avalanche game. There was nothing Notre Dame could do at Hard Rock Stadium the last time they played because Miami jumped on them so fast, and the
yeah,
next thing you know, it was 40 something to 7.
yeah. That was a crazy game.
I'm not expecting that, but I do like our chances with two rookie quarterbacks playing for Notre Dame. But we
That's
know
going to be
they're
their
going to
biggest
lead.
thing.
They're
Yeah,
going to lead on their run game with Jeremiah Love. So if we
totally.
could kind of slow the running game down and make them pass, and everything I've seen, they're still not sure on who the starters are going to be for Notre Dame. Every day is something different. They're expecting Carr to be the starter, but they say the other
Yeah,
kids looking good, pretty good in practice as well. So
yeah. No, for
um,
sure.
yeah, so like I said, we could get through if somehow they could get through game 1-0, you expect them to beat Bethune, of course, and then South Florida might be a tough game, but it's a home game. You expect them to win. If you could be 3-0 going into week 4 to play the Gators, you gotta like your chances. I like our
Yeah,
chances against the Gators, but you can't put the cart before the horse.
yeah, for sure. Like I said, that's 3 weeks of like like we got to let these games play out and see how everybody
Exactly.
looks.
Yeah.
Plus, the phantom injury card comes into play. Someone might get hurt in one of these games, and
Yeah.
it derails the whole season. So, like
Hell, practice.
it's
We're
yeah,
right now. I mean, look at the guys dropping like flies in the NFL during
yeah,
during training camp.
no, for sure. Like I say, it's one of those things of that's why like they talk about preseason games and all this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
Injuries are a part of the game. You hate to see it. You want to see teams at full clips. You want to see teams with the best players on their teams play. Nobody wants to see injuries, but it's a part of the game, and it just is what it is. And you got to say,
Yeah.
we got to have the next man up mentality. You got to have that depth, which is what I was talking about earlier. Like I say, we were talking with Dave Gator Dave. Is like it's hard to build with the roster construction now with the new age of the portal to build that depth to have those guys who are second and third teamers because those guys are like, man, I'm second team. I'm leaving after this year. I'm out of here. So you never build up that you can't get the layers built up anymore. So you got to hope that first unit is really good and they stay as healthy as
Yeah.
possible. And then whatever depth you have
But
is viable.
I think Mario. Yeah.
And I think Mario's done a great job recruiting for sure. Like he's got players. They got
But I
dudes.
think I think Mario's done a great. Yeah, he's done a Yeah, he's done a hell of a job. The one thing we know, their offensive line is always going to be good, regardless
Yeah.
regardless of what the metrics say, what PFF says. Their offensive line is going to be really good. So that's why I expect them to try to run the ball more. They need to be more physical. I think at times last year we we trusted Cam Ward so much that they really didn't run the ball. It took them like 6-7 games to really get the running game going with Damian Martinez. So I expect them to come in game 1 and be like, "Hey, we got to get this thing cooking. Let's get the running game going, and we'll do a lot of play action, some passes, and whatnot like that." I mean, because like I say, you're young on that wide receiver position. Even at tight end, you lose a great tight end in Elijah Arroyo. Now
Yeah.
you have Lofton coming back, and then you have Bowman, which you did. I didn't know this until the other day. His brother is a tight end for Notre Dame, so we got two brothers
Oh,
playing
nice.
against each other at the same position week 1.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I didn't know that, but that was you remember what I said last year is after those first couple games, I was like, dude, this Miami offense is explosive, man. I was like, this is going to be your offense. Y'all aren't going to rely on the running game. Y'all are literally high
Mhm.
flying, 400 yards a game. Cam Ward, this is your offense. And I don't know if that kind of bit you in the butt a little bit to where you wanted to rely heavily on the run game. I mean, Martinez still ended up with 1,000 yards on the ground, and even Fletcher, tallied 600. With Lyle at 400, so you still rushed for 2,000 on the season, but it was more so. I remember I was like, dude, this is the Canes offense. I'd love it. Like throw for 400
Yeah.
a game, light up the scoreboard. But now things are going to change. Cam Ward's gone. Enter Carson Beck. You lose all those your weapons that you were throwing to. All those guys are either transferred or in the NFL. And so, like, yeah, there's going to be a learning curve. And like I say, yes, you got those two layup games after your sandwich games of Notre Dame and Florida. So right out the gate, like I say, we're going to find out what those Canes, what the offseason workouts have been and to where they're at. Cause you want to be obviously, like you said, 3-0. But if you go 2-2 in that or 3-1, you feel good that you got, you get at least one out of the two against Florida or Notre Dame. But then after that, then I think the season kind of settles in, and I think you'll be all right. So I think a split with Florida and Notre Dame, I think you're still fine. You just can't drop both of those games, in my opinion.
No, no, you really can't. Yeah, if you go 2-2, it's not looking good, and the
Right.
needle's starting to point down, and then you get a bye week before Florida State. You could get up to play Florida State at Doak. The thing I hate about the schedule is, yes, we have 9 games in the state of Florida. Me and you talked
Right.
about it the other day, and you were like, "Are you serious about this?" You
Yeah.
get a bye week going into Florida State. You play Florida State, and then you got a bye week right after. Who the hell's making that schedule?
Yeah. That's
I'm not a fan of it, but looking at the rest of the schedule, you come out of that, okay, if somehow you could be 4-1 or 5-1, whatever it is, after the Florida State game, then you get into the heart of your ACC. And then
yeah.
you got Louisville at home, you got Stanford at home, and then you go to SMU, which is going to be a tough game just
Yeah.
because of that offense. And we're not sure what the Miami defense is going to look like right away. I think they're going to be bigger, faster, stronger, in my opinion. Can't be worse than last year. They can, but I doubt it. And then you got a revenge game against Syracuse. And then I remember the coach talking trash from NC State a couple of years ago. So you got that. And you got VTech. That's going to be a night game, I'm sure, against VTech. Inner Sandman is going to be cold. They're thinking about
Yeah.
last year. Then, like you say, go to Pitt. How do you finish? I think
Yeah.
for me, a good season, how should I say this? A great season is 11-1.
Right. Yeah.
I think 11-1 is a great season.
Because
Getting
we
to
were
the
talking about this
ACC
last week with the
championship game.
Gators. What's the all right? So again, last week, best case scenario for the Gators, best case scenario for the Canes, win-loss record, worst case scenario, and then what you expect. So what's the best case scenario? Obviously 12-0, but would you say 11-1 would be the best case
11-1.
scenario?
I think 11-1. That's being realistic. Is the best case scenario. Worst
What's worse?
worst case, if Carson gets hurt and we got to play those young guys, 7-5.
Right.
I think that's worst case scenario. And then
Yeah.
where I'm sitting at 9-3, 10-2.
Yeah, I think I'm with you right there. I'm best case scenario is 11-1. I think realistic, I think 9-3, 10-2 is where I really got you at. And I
Where
mean,
it
worst
still
case,
gets you in the ACC championship game, because
yeah,
if the
yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
losses are Notre Dame and Florida,
Right.
you still control the rest of your destiny. And if you win the
Yeah.
ACC, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. You would definitely think that for sure. If you because here's the thing, Notre Dame and Florida, if you lose both of those games, they're out of conference. Obviously, that means so.
Yep.
Like you said, you run the table in the ACC, you're undefeated, you're in the ACC championship game. More than likely, you win or you lose that game, you're probably in still, pending on the rest of the way the whole national landscape shakes out.
Yeah.
But kind of like you kind of be like the SMU team if you're playing Clemson or something and you lose that game, and then you're the 11 or 12 and you're in the playoff or whatever. But yeah, I think the key is to win the ACC, get in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to lose to Notre Dame and Florida for sure. You don't want to lose to Florida as your rival, and you don't want to lose to Notre Dame. But again, the way the rest of the schedule shapes up, I think you're still in a good spot to basically
No.
get in.
No.
But yeah, like the good part is you find out early, whether or not what you got to do. Because, like I say, week 4, you're going to find out whether you're 4-0, 2-2, 3-1, whatever.
Yeah. Hopefully Bain coming back being healthy helps. Akeem Mesidor played in his right position helps. And then the trick for the defense is the defensive tackle position. Who's going to step up? Is the 5-star Justin Scott going to step up? The transfer in Blay, is he going to step in there? Ahmad Moten, the guy that's been there feels like 7 years, is he going to step up? So the interior of the defensive line, who's going to be that guy? The edge guys, I feel pretty confident in. I've been hearing great things about Armando Blunt as well. Hayden Lowe, the true freshman, they expect him to get a lot of reps. Then you got a Cam Pruitt. So defensively, I feel confident in the front 7. It's that back 4 that, with new pieces back there, how do they communicate? Are those guys are in sync with playing against teams that are going to throw the ball, those guys are going to be key. So hopefully, I can't think of the coach's name that we took from Florida, the DB coach. Hopefully he could get in there and get those guys as one cohesive group and get out running. Every team's going to have questions going into game one. And hopefully we can answer a lot of those questions with Carson and with the back end of the defense.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's one thing I know that was like the part that you were most concerned about with a lot of people was that secondary, because I mean, they obviously played well early. Then as the season went on, they kind of didn't play so hot. They blew some coverages. They were not in the right spot. And,
No,
even going to where we were talking about like the Georgia Tech game, how much they got misaligned and how much they weren't, in the right,
a ton.
it was just like, what's going on here? Why are we not communicating this? Does the coaching staff not realize, we're getting outflanked over here? Like we got no edge on this. And,
Every week.
the
Correct,
style of
correct,
run that Georgia
correctable
Tech
things that
does.
weren't corrected.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Exactly.
guess what? That's why the guy got fired. So that's why he's coaching somewhere else now. But I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah.
again, like I think
Yeah.
expectation levels are still high because it's Miami. I think Mario, as this is what he's brought to the Canes. He's brought
They're
them
through the
back up
roof.
to, he's brought the relevance back. He's bringing in top talent, and then when you go and you bring in two of the top portal quarterbacks in back-to-back seasons, they're like I say, you're expected to do something.
Mm-hmm. I Mario's on the hot seat if they don't make it to the ACC championship game. If for some reason they don't make it to the ACC, people in South Florida aren't trying to hear, "Oh, we had
Yeah,
another good year." Like, yes,
yeah,
10-2, just save the 2 losses to the ACC teams, and you're not in the ACC championship game. People are not happy. Canes
right.
fans are not happy. The running joke is, yeah, Miami's been in the ACC with the expectations of Florida State, Miami playing in every ACC championship game from whenever they moved. I think it was 2003, 4, whatever it is. And they've been to one ACC championship game. They should have been in 2. One they got disqualified for, and the other one they got blown out by Clemson. So it's like
Yeah.
Canes fans are getting restless. They want them there. They want them to win. Even if you don't win, somehow if you could springboard that into going on the road the first round of the playoffs and getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, what's wild is the fact of, the Florida State Miami rivalry and how great it has always been in our books, way back to when we were kids, we were teens, young
Mm-hmm.
adults, old men like we are now. Florida State Miami is always one of the best games. And I
Speak for
remember
yourself.
when I'm a young old man, but the thing
Yeah.
about going into was the ACC. Finally, Miami's in there, and you're like, we're going to see Florida State and Miami every single year for the ACC title. This is going to be banger, banger, and then
Yep.
like neither team went for like ever, never, ever, ever, and then it's like, what's going on here? Like these are two proud programs, and they can't make it to the title game
Yeah.
in all these years. Then Clemson kind of took over. The
Consistency,
conference.
man. The Canes.
Yeah,
I, I think part of the problem is the Canes are just not consistent. It's one year the offense is great and the defense is terrible. Then the
right.
next year the defense is good and the
No,
offense is terrible. And we've
football.
never got that middle point.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. You can't win football games like that. And last year
you
proved
gotta.
it. I
Yeah.
think they were top 5 in the nation in scoring points.
Oh yeah, offensively they were a juggernaut. They
So,
were fun to watch.
but you still got to stop people. Look at the
No,
Bengals. They can score as many
definitely.
points as they want, but if you can't stop the other
Yeah,
team, all it takes is, hey, give us the ball the last drive.
yeah,
But
no, for
I,
sure.
I'm I'm excited. I don't. I'm really excited. I forgot this one. This is going to be the first year in like 7 years. There's not a Borgalis kicking the field goal, and we got my favorite kicker from Texas transfer over.
Oh yeah, oh Red
Not
Auburn,
excited
baby,
about that, but
Auburn, oh
he may
Auburn,
prove me wrong.
a War Eagle,
God, that guy's missing big kicks. Yeah,
Rhett
he's missing big
Auburn.
kicks. I'm not really a fan.
He's made some kicks though too though. He's
I'm
like I
sure
said,
you're going to remind me.
he's made
Yeah,
some
no,
kicks.
he's made some kicks, but he's also missed a bunch.
Yeah,
But
no,
it is it. I felt great when I knew a Borgalis walked out on the field. I was like,
yeah,
that's going in. I feel pretty good about it.
yeah. No, I was just looking at Carson's numbers here from last season. He had his definitely up and down year for sure. like he threw the 3 picks in that Bama game, but then lit them up in that second half to get them back into it after they had gotten down so big. He
Mhm.
played off. He played awful on the road at Texas and threw 3 picks that first game. Then obviously got hurt the second time he played Texas right there at the half, but he didn't have a good first half. And then he had the 3 picks against the Gators. Didn't play well that day either. Didn't play well against Ole Miss, but then finished out. He had good games against Tennessee and Georgia. That Georgia Tech game was pretty awesome. That was threw for 5 touchdowns in that one. I mean, it went to 8 overtimes, but yeah, like I say, Carson is one of those guys where it's like I really like him, and I think I know he has it, but coming about the injury, being in a new system, we got to see. And like I say, it's one of those things of it's put it this way: I'd rather have him than what you got, and I'd
Mhm.
rather have him. I'd rather have him over a lot of the other portal quarterbacks. So if there's that. It's like if you're looking at all the
100%.
portal. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to think could you name a guy you'd rather have? Maybe would you rather have a Mateer or would you rather have Carson? Would you rather have
Well
who else was
well,
a top
before I thought
transfer guy
Mensa that went to Duke.
from Tulane?
Before before Carson signed, Mateer seemed like he was going to be the guy potentially to come, and Miami lost out on that one. I don't know if they lost out on that one or they knew Carson was coming.
Right,
It's like we still hear little tidbits of the whole Cam Ward situation where
right,
Jeremiah Smith's like, yeah, I talked to Cam the day before signing day in December, and I knew he was going to Miami. And it's like the timelines you hear of everything don't add up because Cam really didn't get there until January. So I'm not sure on the Carson Beck timeline of when the decision was made compared to the other portal quarterbacks. But heck yeah, he's better. He's won a national championship. Like,
mm-hmm.
like anytime you say that he's a national championship winning quarterback as the starter, he's going to be better than majority of the guys that are in the portal.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I say, it's
It's not
just
like we're not talking about the 1985 or 86 or 87 Notre Dame Fighting Irish when they were running the wishbone. He's not that style of quarterback. So he's been able to throw the ball, get some big yards, hit some big targets. It's great when you have a Brock Bowers and a Lab McConkey and guys like that, which he doesn't have. But Elijah Lofton at tight end and Bauman at tight end, I expect those two guys to be on the field a lot. And like I say, he's got burners on the outside, so just got to get the ball to him. Those guys just got to
yeah.
make the catches.
Now, is any of the off-field stuff going to be a problem? Girlfriends, love triangles, Lamborghini trucks. Like, is any of that stuff going to be an issue for Mr. Carson Beck?
Hey,
I
my
mean,
man
living the
needs to
life.
stay out of Hialeah. As long as he stays
He,
out of Hialeah, he's good.
he's living the life. He's living the life down there.
Hey,
8th Street Latinas.
I think he was doing the same thing in Athens, but
Right.
Athens and Miami are two totally different worlds. My
Totally.
man was down in Hialeah having a good time, and
Yeah.
I think he's locked in. Everything I've seen and heard, it sounds like he's pretty locked in, and he's holding the guys accountable. I think also they said him and Cam had a nice little conversation the other month, and Cam told him, "Don't mess this up," and here's the keys. Here's the keys to the Ferrari. Take it and run, and you
Right.
could change your expectations. Like I say, look at Cam. Cam went from third, fourth, fifth round draft pick to he comes to Miami, has a great year, and he's the number one overall pick. I don't think Carson would do that kind of trajectory,
Right.
but it still could help his draft prospects, and maybe he could be mid to late first round, even second round if he goes out and has a great year with Miami.
Yeah. No, I was listening to, I guess Denny posted
And
something.
Miami's a hard place to focus. I don't care what man
Yeah.
says or you go down there. Yeah.
No, for sure. It's dangerous. It's dangerous down there. And not just like crime level dangerous. It's dangerous out there in them streets.
Yeah.
But no, I heard I guess Denny posted a
Mm-hmm.
short clip of Carson talking about the Georgia Tech game.
What was Denny
And
talking about?
he had Carson on his new podcast. I think it might have been an older podcast, but he had a clip of Carson talking about that Georgia Tech, how he he basically was believing they were
Yeah.
going to win, and he was watching the fans, the Georgia fans, basically filing out, leaving the game like we're about to lose to Georgia Tech, and he saw his own fans leaving, and how he's like, all right, and told the guys like, stick with us, we're going to be all right, we're going to be all right, and they, just rallied back,
Yeah.
battled back, got the thing to overtime, and then the rest is history with all those overtimes, and it was a wild. I remember watching it
Mm-hmm.
myself, and I'm like, Georgia's about to really lose to Tech, like this is crazy, but
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, they got the
The
win,
group chat
and
was popping that night.
yeah, no, it was like, what is going on here, Georgia? That was where the
Yeah.
SEC hate came in for sure. Like this is your best team out of SEC. No, not really, but they, like I said, the rest is history. They won that game, and then he gets hurt the next week, in Atlanta against Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think they had it. Even if Carson would have played that game, I just think that Texas D was too good for Georgia that day. And then it kind of showed in the Notre Dame game that Gunnar Stockton was trying to make his first start, but Notre Dame was just too much. Really, I think here's what's sad and scary to say about Georgia. I think they got out physicaled on the front lines. Notre Dame ran the ball well,
100%
and
they
they
did. No, they
and they
did.
got it. So
They did.
like that. That's one thing you normally don't say about Kirby and Georgia's team is they got out physical. So
Yeah.
like I said, that's going to be a good challenge again because I think Freeman's brought in that mentality. So that Notre Dame Miami game again is going to be a hell of a game because obviously them breaking in a new quarterback is going to be you guys could feast maybe if he's making mistakes if you guys are shutting the run game down. But again, we'll get into all that when that game
Mm-hmm.
comes. We'll do the game breakdown as we get a little bit closer and we know who's the starter and all that stuff. But like I say, coming out the gate, that's I love what Marcus Freeman's doing at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's been one of those teams where I was like, man, I hate Notre Dame. Like it's weird having a guy like Marcus Freeman, a guy you can kind of root for and you like. It's like you kind of
It's a
just be like,
different energy.
yeah, it's like I don't hate Notre Dame like I used to. I guess I don't know. It's weird.
Well, I think it's a little bit of Lou Holtz rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Charlie
Probably.
Weiss rubbed a lot of people. You go down the list of coaches.
Even going way back, when everybody thought like Notre Dame's the greatest team in history of sports.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where it stemmed from. Rudy,
Yeah. I mean,
the four horsemen.
that,
But
and
Lou
like
Holtz.
I say, you think the coaches, exactly. The coaches are not like, and Marcus Freeman, I think because he's younger, he's more hip.
Yeah.
He's more
likable.
in tune to what's going on. It's not I think Notre Dame kind of keeps everything in a bubble. You really don't know much about him, and he's opened it up with social media. Their video team has done a great job with the team last year. With the week in and week out videos they put out were great. So it's I think he's let people in more, so we get to see it. We get to appreciate what he's doing with him and his guys. But yeah, I mean, outside of that game, sure. But the Miami Notre Dame game, I expect it to be electric that night. The place.
Yeah, it's gonna be lit. It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be lit for sure. Yeah,
Yep.
what's wild is thinking back
Yeah.
to like, yeah, Notre Dame played in the national title, man. They played in the national title. But they ain't got no Riley Leonard no more.
They were there.
Yeah. Well, looking back at it, they were getting smoked, and they made it a little game. It was a 7-point game with a couple minutes to go.
Yeah.
Like they got it back to a touchdown game after being down by 24. But yeah, like I said, it was such a weird end.
Not just that, but Spar's not. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to go back to the NIU game that they lost earlier in the year. The NIU game, we thought they were dead in the water because you just don't lose games like that at Notre Dame at home. And everyone swore it didn't matter what they did the rest of the year. The committee was not going to let them in because of that game. And a lot of teams helped them, one of them being Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, they even looking at their schedule, Purdue was terrible. They had a good win that week one when they beat A&M at A&M, but then they played Miami, Ohio, was terrible. They had a nice win against Louisville. in the middle of the year. They were still ranked. Then they played Stanford. They got a win against Georgia Tech. They played that Navy team who that was when Navy kind of faltered off there when they were on their big run early in the year. Then they
Mhm.
closed it out with Florida State, Virginia, two terrible teams. Beat a pretty good Army team, and then they beat SC, who kind of was faltering. Got in the playoff, and then
Mhm.
handled business against Indiana, beat Georgia, beat our favorite team, the Fighting James Franklins, and they got to the Natty. But yeah, Notre Dame, like I say,
Mhm.
they're Franklin's doing a good job. Or excuse me, Franklin's not doing a good job in the big game. Freeman's doing a great job at Notre Dame. Has made them more a likable squad than, like you say, the Lou Holtz led Fighting Irish from back in the day. But yeah, no, like I say, I think the
And if you
Canes.
you look you you look at their schedule to start, you got 3 tough ones. You got at Miami, and you got Texas A&M, Purdue, and then at Arkansas. Arkansas is not the greatest, but
And
Taylor
then
Green
you
and
play
that
Boise too.
offense.
You play Boise too. Like that's Boise is a
Yeah, right
respectable
after
program
Arkansas.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, their easiest game out of the 5 is against Purdue week 3. So yeah, if they start off,
Mhm.
with a loss to you guys and lose to A&M, they're 0-2. It's man, what's going on? The world's crashing down. Then even they got let's see how good
Mhm.
USC and Lincoln Riley is this year. They got to go to Pitt, where we both think Pitt's going to be a better team, and that's on the road in November, so it'll be cold. That'll be I mean, it's not like Notre Dame doesn't play in cold weather, but playing at Pitt, it's Notre Dame. They could be one of those teams where you're looking at them right now. They're in the top 5, and then next thing you know, what happened to Notre Dame this year? They're like 3 or 4 losses. They're out of the top 25. That could very
Yeah.
well be their case. Like that's going to happen to somebody when you look at these rankings and like that again. Um, we were talking about it. We're like rankings. You got to have preseason rankings. I know people are like, oh, don't like teams just don't put a number by it. Like it's for the hype of the game, man. We got 4 top 10 games starting week 1. If you didn't have like numbers by those team names, yes, Ohio State, Texas does bring like this. We know this is going to be a hell of a game, but it's going to be 1 versus 2. Then you're going to have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 9. And like, so like it's that's all for the entertainment value of college football. So you got to have the preseason rankings. And sure, there's going to be teams that are way overrated right now, and then there's going to be teams that are undervalued right now. That's just the way it works. It's the way it is. So it's just the Gators might be overvalued at 17 or 12 or whatever they are, and then they might be undervalued. Maybe they're a top 5 team. Maybe the Canes should be a top 5 team and Notre Dame shouldn't. So again, that's where guess what? You get to play it on the field and see what happens. That's the great part about this game. You get to see these big games happen and like let's see who's really balling and who's not. Put up or shut up, But yeah, it's like I say, I think I've got pretty high expectations for the Canes, but it's kind of like the Gators. I've got high expectations for the Gators, so now it's like I'm done talking. We've talked about it. We know who they got. We just
Talking
got to see.
season.
It's that's what it is. We got 2 more weeks of it
Yeah.
because no games have been played. So until, like I said before, until you get out there and play, whether Miami waxes Notre Dame or vice versa, then you can criticize and critique and
Mhm.
say, hey, Carson looks like ass. Carson looks great. The defense looks bad. The defense needs to figure some stuff out. Now we're just talking about it. Like DJ looks great. DJ looks bad. The offensive line's not as good as we thought it was going to be. We can't run the ball. What's going on? Like so all those key points that we think that we're putting a lot of value on, we're gonna find out in a couple of weeks because that's the great part about it. Some games are going to be happening. So until then, we just gotta wait and see, baby. Wait it out. Wait it out. We got another week, and then we'll click it on down to another week. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything else to add on the Miami Hurricanes.
Not really.
Um,
No.
yeah,
No,
because
I
like I
mean,
say,
like, yeah, I mean, I think we touched on everything for the most part. It's just, like you say, it's just get out there, get through camp healthy as much as you can, no big injuries. We don't need Ruben Bain getting hurt again. We need Carson to make it through the season. So those are the keys, for the most part. And if someone does get hurt, do you have someone ready to just roll in their next man up
yeah,
mentality, like you've been saying?
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well,
other than that, I
well,
think
yeah,
we're
like I
done with the
say,
Canes. And
yeah. Well, like I say, that's the same thing. Like talking about DJ's health right now. That everybody's like, oh, he still hasn't thrown in a scrimmage or something, whatever. So if DJ was to get hurt week 2 or week 1 or whatever, and then he's out for the year, yeah, we're going to be up shit's creek without a paddle with our backup quarterback. If the Kane,
I think that's most teams, like you said,
that's
you've
what I'm saying.
highlighted.
We
last
talked
week.
about that. We talked about that. That's
Yeah,
pretty much everybody. If you look at everybody's backup quarterbacks, none of these guys have experience to where you're like, man, I can really lean on this guy. He's going
and
to take me
hell,
to the promised.
even if they're healthy and playing, I saw Alabama's naming Ty Simpson the
Right.
quarterback. If Ty Simpson's not good, that tells you everything about their backups. That they're probably
He
not good enough to lead that offense.
I was about to say he beat him out. So that means, now, don't get me wrong, like there might be a short leash if if the competition was hot. But again, what was I listening to? It might have been the Netflix thing. Yeah, I think it was. It was like some people say if you got two quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks.
None.
Because
Yeah,
so that's the hard part about it is trying to which one is the guy, so hopefully, for all these teams, you want to see. I don't want Carson Beck to go down. I don't want DJ to go down. I want to see these guys play. Because you want to see what that offense looks like. At a full capable.
yeah.
All the arsenals there. You want to see the best players play. But yeah, like I said, I have my expectation levels. I think the Canes do are in that 10-2, 9-3 ballpark with possibilities of 11 or 12-0 with the ACC championship game on the horizon, probably versus I would say Clemson. If we'll do our breakdowns of who we're going to pick in league play maybe in the next week or two. We'll have to cram it in. Maybe we'll probably only talk about 15 minutes with the Florida State Seminoles, so we can do it next week.
You're back on that again.
I don't know how much we could probably get it in right here. We've been going for 46 minutes. We could probably get Florida State's preview in right now and be done with it. But no,
We'll give them their fair due, even if it's 20 minutes.
we'll give them their due. But no, but yeah, here's the latest one real quick before we get off.
Yeah.
Another great hypothetical. I don't know if
Oh
you saw.
God, here we go. I going forward, I expect this every week now. Some kind of
Okay.
hypothetical.
All right, a good hypothetical. That's how we'll
A good
close.
hypothetical.
All right. So the good hypothetical is your boy Bud, Mr. Bud Elliott, posted on they're doing their like season picks, like what their records think they're going to be, blah 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 blah. So he said Texas will go 9-3 and get in the playoff, and the rest of the Danny and all those guys are like, "What are you smoking, buddy? Hell no, Bud. What are you on, dog? Like, no, sir." And they were like 9-3. Does that mean they lose to Ohio State and like maybe a Florida and like an Ole Miss? Like, who's their best wins then? Because if you look at
I'm trying to pull up their schedule right now.
it sucks from last year. You remember us talking about it? Like we're like Texas' schedule sucks.
No,
Like
I remember.
they got gifted a easy first year in the SEC. You're like, what is this, man? So I was like, I was like, no way.
It's just that's the imbalance.
Yeah. But at 9-3, that's what we're even talking about. Me and Dave were talking about 9-3. If the Gators go 9-3, do they get in? And what happens is you argue. I'm not talking about the 9-3 versus LSU with the loss. We're not doing that. But if 9-3 Florida schedule is better than a 9-3 Texas schedule.
All right. So how about this? Let's go with your hypothetical. If they finish 9-3,
yep,
I truly think it depends on those 3 games.
Right.
If they lose to Ohio State and they win and they lose to Georgia and Texas A&M, they're not in.
Right. Because who's their best win?
Because Georgia and Texas A&M were 2 of their last 3 games.
Right. And on top of that, now name me their best win.
But I think it's more of where those 3. I think it's more of where those 3 are too. Because just say they lose to Ohio State, and then they lose to Florida and Oklahoma back to back, and then they run the rest of the table and they're dominant the rest of the way. And Georgia's pretty good. Just say if Arkansas is decent and A&M stays in the top 25. If Georgia and A&M are both in the top 25, that possibly I would, depending on what everyone else does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't see them getting in at 9-3 either way, personally.
Right. Yeah.
But,
yeah, that's what everybody like that. Bud was like, dude, SEC hype machine. Arkansas is a great team. Kentucky's really good. Vanderbilt, he's saying basically the SEC ESPN network is going to come in and start hyping up these teams to get Arch Manning in the playoff.
But it's true, and I'm sure you saw it when the whole SEC was mad at Rhett Lashley during days when Rhett was like, there's only been 6 SEC champions, 6 teams that have won the SEC championship since the 60s. And when you go and look at it, you're like, Red has a very good point. So the point I think is you keep talking about how great the conference is. If the conference is great, you would think there'd be a little bit more parity, but it really hasn't been parity. So, and
SEC's been
I think
super
the
top
SEC could
heavy.
take that claim since 2000. Before 2000, they've just been whatever. Yeah, for sure.
But where it's different, in my opinion, I've always leaned on this, is the middle and bottom are pretty good teams. Like we had this argument a couple years ago, even with like Steve. Like when Arkansas was 6-6 2 years ago, I was like, Arkansas would have gave Florida State hell. Like they might not have won that game. Florida State might have beat them that year with a healthy Jordan Travis. But playing a 6-6 Arkansas team is different than playing a 6-6 Wake Forest. It just is. But like I say, that's for another day, another argument. But like, yeah, the SEC has been majorly top heavy, and like those 6 teams have kind of ruled the roost at different times. But where I think the meat and middle is where it's like those you don't want to play against a Kentucky when Mark Stoops has got them rolling, or like an Arkansas, or even when that's the whole thing. The league is so deep now and so big. It's like the Gators are in the mid. South Carolina's in the mid. That like yes, the Gators have won an SEC title in the last however many years that the Lashley was talking about, but that's where I think when you start going at the Big Ten and the ACC, and you're like, all right, we know Clemson and Miami and usually Florida State are really, really, really good. But then when you get to that next tier, how good are those teams compared to the tiers after Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State in the Big Ten, and
I
so
think
on
the
and so
Big
on.
Ten. I think the Big Ten's overrated because I think it's Ohio State, it's Penn
It's
State,
it's always been
Oregon
top
now.
heavy. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You
Before
can't even
Oregon,
like
and
when you don't think about, but you think Big Ten, like Oregon's just newly added, so that doesn't
right.
It counts, but it doesn't. But I mean,
No.
it's like
I was just about to say if you take out Oregon, USC, and Washington,
yeah,
before that, the Big
the
Ten was
fourth,
just Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
yeah, the fourth team would always be Wisconsin every like 4 years or something like that. That would be their fourth team. Maybe Iowa,
Yeah.
But again, Wisconsin and Iowa are traditionally 8-4 teams, which would be mediocre. They play in the Outback Bowl against a 8-4 SEC team. But again, that's where. But even after like an Iowa or a Wisconsin, then it gets shitty to me, like really crappy. As far as
Northwestern, Purdue.
yeah, even
Yeah.
So again, that's the whole conference debate or whatever. But I think again, 9-3, it's going to be an interesting talking point to whoever is a 9-3 trying to get in, because then what you're going to be arguing is probably like a 10-2 Big 12 team, like a 10-2 Iowa State versus a 9-3 Texas. That's where you say, okay, who did Iowa State win, and who are their 10 wins versus their 2 losses, and then you're doing the whole which one's better. They have better wins or they got more losses, that whole deal. So that's where you got to let the season play out to see it. But in my opinion, if you have a tougher schedule and you have better wins, I would take a 9-3 team over a 10-2 team. That's just my opinion. But like I say, until you can have the black and white A and B, you choose. You're just throwing the hypothetical out there. You're throwing the hypothetical out there, baby.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you need 3 hypotheticals next week to get the time in.
3?
I'm just saying.
I gotta do 3. I gotta do 3.
Nah, we're gonna get at least 20-something minutes of Florida State in. There's a lot to talk about with that team.
There actually is. Like there actually is. There's a lot that Florida State.
There's a lot to talk about.
They got to show their fan base. Mike Norvell, like new quarterback. Tommy Cast has been talking some cash.
Whoa, don't save it for next week, buddy. Save it for next week.
I'm just giving some bullet points that we're gonna be pinpointing on. So like I say, they open up with a banger out the gate too. So
yeah, like that W. Yeah, that's a guaranteed W.
Yeah, it is. It is. Ty Simpson. We'll see. But no, yeah, another week down, another week in, another week closer. We'll come back.
Shout out to you for thugging it out, because I know you're not feeling good.
I know. Yeah, I Cruz, dude. Like this house has been the house of horrors, man. Haiti was sick for like 2 weeks. Gave it to Cruz. I've been handling Cruz while Haiti was sick. I've been feeling good. I'm like, this thing's not gonna catch me.
I can hear it in your voice though.
Yeah. I got a little nasal. Like I've been talking
you're going to sleep right after this.
Definitely, definitely. But like, yeah, like the nasal capacities there. Like I'm like thinking, I'm like, dude, I'm like, this thing's not gonna catch me. And like I say, hopefully tomorrow might be the worst of it. Then I'll be on the mend. But I mean, I don't feel terrible, but I got that like head ish going on,
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I made it through. I rallied. I rallied past.
Hey man,
It's 10 o'clock at night.
take you some NyQuil and
I know I don't have my meds. They're in the other room, but yeah,
call it a night.
but hit it. I do want to play one of my games though, man. Dang. So
Yeah.
all right, peoples, we appreciate y'all listening. Thanks for listening. Tune in, subscribe, like, follow, hit your daily shout
Hey,
outs.
shout out to everyone. Thanks, like to subscribe. I don't know who I'm gonna shout out next time. Somebody. Hey,
Hey,
my man James. I know my man James Degelman's gonna listen to this.
yeah, he tunes in. He tunes in
He's a day one. So I'm always
for
gonna shout him out.
for show for
He probably
show.
didn't listen to this one since we're talking about the Canes.
He might, he just wants to see if maybe I put some haterism on it or something.
Yeah.
No, I kept it cool. I kept it cool. But no, but yeah, like I said, we'll be back at it next week, talking a little bit of Knowles, talking a little I guess we could probably throw in some we might as well have to throw in like our predictions for conference since we're gonna have week 0 games that I didn't take account into. Because usually there's not a big usually a decent game, but not a top 25 game. So
Maybe we'll knock out 2 next week. We'll figure out the
yeah.
schedules.
Yeah, there's only 4 power. That could be an idea.
Yeah.
Do
No, I mean, we
do
could probably knock out 2 podcasts next week,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big
We'll
dot.
we'll, we'll figure out our schedules.
Big time in it. Big time in it. True that. All right. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Until next week, it's your boy L Train and your boy Spongerelli. We will holler at you, boys.
Later.
Peace.